In the shadowed valleys of the Hindu Kush Mountains, where the wind whispered secrets of ancient battles and the sun bled crimson over jagged peaks, a small outpost clung to life like a forgotten prayer. It was the summer of 2023, and the war in Afghanistan had morphed into something unrecognizable, a ghost of its former self, haunted by Taliban resurgence and the weary remnants of Allied forces. The young snipers of Echo Company were boys, really, fresh from boot camp in distant lands, their faces still soft with the innocence of youth. They called themselves the Eagle Eyes, but lately, their shots had been as erratic as the mountain gusts. Private Jamal Ruiz, barely 20, crouched behind a sandbag parapet, his M24 sniper rifle steady in his calloused hands. The target was a Taliban commander, Mullah Karim, holed up in a mud brick compound 300 meters down the ravine. Intelligence had marked him as the architect of roadside bombs that had claimed 13 lives in the past month alone. "This is it, boys," Sergeant Hale barked, his voice a gravelly rumble. "One shot, one kill. Miss, and we are all fertilizer." Jamal peered through the scope, the crosshairs dancing over the distant figure. Karim stood brazenly on a rooftop, rallying his fighters with a raised AK-47. Jamal's heart pounded like a war drum. He exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked, and the bullet whistled through the air, only to embed itself in the wall inches from Karim's head. A miss. Again. "Damn it, Ruiz." Hale snarled. The young sniper's face flushed with shame. It wasn't the first time. For weeks, the platoon had tried to take out high-value targets, but something always went wrong. Wind shear, nerves, faulty intel, the excuses piled up like spent casings. Next was Corporal Liam O'Reilly, an Irish lad with freckles and a quick grin. He adjusted for elevation, factored in the Coriolis effect, and fired. The shot grazed Karim's shoulder, sending him ducking for cover but not down. Miss number 2. The platoon rotated through the roster. Private Ahmed Khan, a local Afghan recruit with eyes like polished onyx, missed by a hair. Specialist Troy Bennett, the Texan braggart, sent his bullets sailing wide into the rocks. Each failure chipped away at their morale, turning the outpost into a pressure cooker of frustration and fear. Rumors spread that Karim was protected by jinn, spirits of the mountains, or worse, that the young snipers were cursed by their own inexperience. The Taliban grew bolder, their patrols encroaching closer each night, lobbing mortars that shook the earth and claimed limbs. Amid this chaos lived Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez, a woman in her mid-40s whose presence was as unyielding as the granite cliffs. She wasn't supposed to be there, not anymore. Elena had retired from the U.S. Army 5 years prior, after 2 decades of service that spanned Iraq, Syria, and the endless sands of Afghanistan. A decorated markswoman with the Silver Star pinned to her chest, she had once been the stuff of legends, the ghost of Fallujah, they called her, for her ability to vanish enemies from impossible distances. But war had taken its toll. A roadside IED in Helmand Province had shattered her right leg, leaving her with a prosthetic and a limp that echoed her inner scars. Worse still, it had stolen her husband, Captain Marco Vasquez, in the same blast. Marco, her rock, her love, the man who had proposed under a Baghdad moon with a ring forged from scavenged brass. Elena had come back to Afghanistan not as a soldier, but as a civilian advisor for a humanitarian NGO, training local women in self-defense and literacy. The outpost was a temporary refuge during a supply run gone awry, stranding her amid the escalating violence. She watched the young snipers from the sidelines, her dark eyes shadowed by memories. "Kids playing with fire," she muttered to herself, patching up wounds in the makeshift infirmary. But as the misses mounted, so did the body count. A mortar round killed Private Khan's best friend, splintering the boy's resolve. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of fire and blood, Hale gathered the platoon. "Karim's planning a big push tomorrow. Intel says he's got reinforcements. If we don't take him out tonight, we are done." The young snipers nodded grimly, but doubt hung heavy in the air. Jamal volunteered first, his voice cracking. "I'll get him this time, Sarge." Elena overheard from her cot, where she was cleaning an old Beretta pistol, a habit from her soldiering days. She rose, her prosthetic clicking softly against the dirt floor. "Let me see the rifle," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of authority long unused. Hale turned, surprise etching his weathered face. With all due respect, you're retired. These boys are trained." "Trained to miss," she interrupted, her tone sharp but not unkind. "I've been watching. They're good, but they're green. Pressure's eating them alive." She limped forward, her frame compact and muscular, scars peeking from beneath her rolled sleeves, reminders of shrapnel and survival. The platoon exchanged glances. Whispers rippled. The ghost. Here. Elena's legend had preceded her, tales passed down like campfire stories. Jamal handed over his M24 reluctantly, his hands trembling. She hefted it, feeling the familiar balance, the cold steel awakening ghosts within her. "This is a fine weapon," she murmured, checking the scope. "But it's not about the gun. It's about the heart behind it." As night fell, the outpost went dark, save for the glow of monitors tracking enemy movements. Kareem emerged again, silhouetted against a flickering lantern in his compound. The young snipers positioned themselves, but Elena waved them back. "Watch and learn," she said softly. She settled into the prone position, her body molding to the earth as if it were an old lover. The prosthetic leg ached, a dull throb that mirrored the pain in her soul. Memories flooded her. Marco's laughter, his hand in hers during long patrols. The blast that tore him away, leaving her broken in body and spirit. She had sworn off the rifle after that, vowing to build rather than destroy. But here, in this forsaken place, destruction was the only path to salvation, for the platoon, for the villagers downstream who would suffer if Kareem lived. Through the scope, Kareem's face came into focus, a man hardened by ideology, his beard streaked with grey, eyes burning with fanaticism. Elena calculated the variables: wind at 5 knots from the northwest, humidity thickening the air, the subtle curve of the earth. But more than math, it was instinct, honed by years of loss and triumph. The boys held their breath. Jamal whispered, "She won't make it. Too far, too dark." Elena exhaled, her world narrowing to the crosshairs. Time slowed. She thought of Marco, of the life they could have had, a quiet farm in New Mexico, children running through fields. Instead, war had claimed it all. This shot wasn't just for the platoon. It was for every widow, every orphan left in the wake of endless conflict. It was her redemption, a final act of defiance against the void. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report echoed like thunder, the bullet arcing through the night. Kareem jerked, a bloom of red on his chest, and crumpled to the rooftop. Silence blanketed the valley, broken only by the distant wail of his men. The platoon erupted in cheers, but Elena remained still, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks. She handed the rifle back to Jamal, her voice steady despite the storm within. "It's not about hitting the target. It's about why you pull the trigger. Remember that." In the days that followed, the Taliban assault faltered without Kareem's leadership. The outpost held, and reinforcements arrived to evacuate the wounded. Elena stayed on, not as a sniper, but as a mentor. She taught the young men not just marksmanship, but resilience, the art of carrying ghosts without letting them weigh you down. Jamal, inspired, hit his next target clean. O'Reilly found his calm in the chaos. The eagle eyes transformed, their misses becoming lessons etched in stone. Elena's story spread through the ranks, a beacon for women in uniform and veterans alike. Proof that strength wasn't in the unbroken, but in those who rose from the shards. Years later, back in the States, Elena sat on a porch, watching the sunset over endless plains. The rifle was locked away, a relic of a life reclaimed. But in quiet moments, she felt Marco's presence, whispering approval. She had picked up the rifle one last time, not for vengeance, but for healing, for herself, and for the boys who would carry the torch forward. The war raged on, as wars do, but in that mountain outpost, a woman veteran had turned failure into legend, reminding the world that true power lies not in the shot, but in the soul that fires it.